Hi there, Miss Holly here to finish up our book, One Well, The Story of Water on Earth by Rochelle Strauss and distributed by Kids Can Press. Today we're talking about demands on the well. 7.5 billion, give or take a few. That's how many people there are on Earth, and that number is growing every day. More people mean a greater demand for water, but this growing population isn't the only thing that's putting a strain on our water supplies. The average person today uses about 6 times more water than 100 years ago. A growing population also means we need more space. As towns and cities grow to accommodate all these people, they gobble up the land, which also affects nearby water. Houses, buildings, and roads sometimes take the place of wetland habitats where animals live, which puts species at risk. They also change the way rainwater, lakes, and streams flow. And pavement and concrete block rainwater from refilling underground water supplies. There are more of us, and our demand for water at home, in industry, and in agriculture has grown tremendously. But all the water we have is all the water we will ever have. There is no more water now than there was 100 or 1,000 or even 10,000 years ago. And there will be no more 100 years from now, when the population may be closer to 10 billion. We need to find a balance between our demands for water and the amount of water that's available to us. The next chapter is called Pollution in the Well. The water cycle helps keep Earth's water clean. As water evaporates, minerals, chemicals, and dirt are left behind. The water vapor that rises into the atmosphere is relatively clean. When rain falls back to Earth, some of it is filtered through rocks and sand and is further cleaned. Even plants play a role. As water travels through them, plants remove chemicals in the water. Then they transpire clean water back into the air. But more and more waste from industry, agriculture, and homes is getting into the water. Runoff from backyards, city streets, and farms dump dirt and chemicals, such as pesticides, fertilizers, and detergents, into lakes, rivers, streams, and ponds. Pollution in the atmosphere from cars and factories mixes with water vapor in the air. The rain that falls pollutes surface water and the groundwater. Our actions may be overloading water's natural ability to clean itself. As more water becomes polluted, there is less clean water available. Nearly 80% of all the sicknesses in the world are caused by unsafe water. And wildlife suffers too. Water pollution threatens the health of many species and habitats across the planet. Because of water's self-cleaning powers, the effects of pollution can be stopped and quite possibly reversed. But to do so, we need to reduce the amount of pollution that gets into the water. The last chapter is called Saving the Water in the Well. Water has the power to change everything. A single splash can sprout a seed, quench a thirst, provide a habitat, generate energy, and sustain life. It also has the power to unite or divide the world. Water is the most basic and important need of all life on Earth. But Earth's one well is in trouble. There is simply not enough clean water to go around. Taking actions to conserve water can help save the well. Conserving water means protecting both the quantity and the quality of water on Earth. For example, using less water helps prevent water sources from drying up, and reducing water pollution protects the overall health of the well. Water conservation can help ensure there's enough clean water for everyone on the planet. By becoming more aware of how you use water and by using less, you too can protect the water in Earth's one well. Remember, every drop counts.
All right, so we're on our last activity here, and you guys just heard from Ms. Holly that all of our water is connected. So what I want to do today is show you guys how you can protect the water by where you live in your watershed. So what's a watershed? Well, a watershed is just an area of land that drains to the nearest body of water. So for example, we live in the Grand River watershed and also in the Lake Michigan watershed. So whatever we do on the land eventually does impact our water, the Grand River and Lake Michigan. So let me give you one example of something we call a point source. So a point source is actually where you can see the source of pollution. So we'll just say this is a paint factory right here. So I always use the example, let's say the paint factory messed up and they had to start all over. So they just discharged their paint, means released it into the river. Let's see what happens here.
Ooh, look at all that goo. All the pollution.
and it eventually goes into the Grand River and then would make its way into the Great Lakes. So as you can see the little plume coming through right there. All right, so those ones are pretty easy to identify. Those ones are pretty easy to enforce. It's stuff like this, the non-point source, where you can't really tell where the pollution is coming from. That's harder to control. So I like to use a farm field for this example. So we know that a farmer puts lots of fertilizers and pesticides on their crop. Well, we don't want to use real fertilizers and pesticides, so what I'm going to use today is a little bit of hot chocolate mix. But let's just turn on our imaginations and imagine that this is fertilizers and pesticide. So let's see what happens when it rains. So I have my trusty rain cloud right here. Let's see where this fertilizer and pesticide eventually runs off to. So you can see that it's entering Lake Michigan right there. All right, so the next example I have, we also know lots of farms have cattle and other kinds of wildlife. Well, these cattle eventually, they need to get some water, so sometimes they'll walk down to the river's edge and trample in a bunch of dirt, and along with dirt, a lot of cow manure. So cow manure gets incorporated into the river as well. So I'll just put a couple piles of cow manure down here for you guys to check out. Again, not real manure.
Yeah, what happens if the tractor goes through it?
Well, if the tractor goes through it, it's going to pack down the soil, remove the vegetation, which helps absorb some of the pollution. Let's just see if that manure goes into the river. Slowly but surely, it's making its way into the river. So, I don't know about you guys, but I would not want to go swimming in Lake Michigan right now with a bunch of cow manure, fertilizers, pesticides. All right, this next activity, we're going to show you guys how pollution from non-porous pavements, stuff like driveways, roads, parking lots, all can enter into our rivers, lakes, and streams. So if you've ever noticed, if you walk through, say, a Meijer parking lot, or even in your driveway after a rainstorm, you may see little rainbows on the pavement. Well, that's actually petroleum products like oil and gasoline that have leaked out into the pavement. Well, eventually it's going to rain. And when it rains, you've probably seen the storm drains on the side of the road. Those don't go to a water treatment facility. They go directly to the nearest body of water. So you can see our oil stains all over the roads here. Again, I'm going to kind of make it rain here a little bit, and you guys should be able to see how some of this stuff goes into our storm drains right here, or may even just run right off the side into the nearest body of water. And again, right now we've got paint, oil, fertilizers, pesticides, cow manure, all in Lake Michigan right now. All right, this next example, I'm going to show you guys how negative forestry practices and just construction in general can impact water quality. So you guys have probably all seen it was a pristine forest at one time, and then all of a sudden there's a new subdivision in there. Well, they have to plow down these trees to do this. These trees, if you can tell on here, these trees have lots of roots that actually help hold the soil in place and stop the soil erosion from entering the rivers, lakes, and streams. In fact, soil erosion and sediments are one of the most common forms of pollution for many of the rivers, lakes, and streams around here. So let's just say this plow truck or this dump truck plows over this little forest here. So we have no forest, we have no roots, and you can probably see the roots on this, no roots to hold the vegetation in place. Well, what we have left is a bunch of sand and dirt all over this hill. And we all know from watching the farm one, when it rains, these sediments and other pollution roll downhill and enter into the nearest body of water. In this case, it's eventually going to make its way out to Lake Michigan. Okay, so now I'm going to offer up a couple solutions for you guys to try to avoid all this pollution entering our rivers, lakes, and streams. Now, this might not look like much, but again, I always tell the students to imagine that this is a large patch of vegetation. So a large patch of vegetation is going to have lots of roots, and it's going to hold soil in place, and these plants also absorb lots of pollution. So what this farmer could have done, instead of mowing his crop all the way up to the water's edge, he could have actually left what we call a buffer strip. And so this buffer strip is going to help collect some of this pollution that would normally run right through into Lake Michigan. So again, I'll put a little bit of fertilizer on here. And it's probably not going to be perfect, but I hope you guys get the idea that this vegetation strip, this buffer strip, should absorb a significant amount of this pollution. It might not absorb it all, but it definitely absorbs a lot more than before. You can almost see how it's kind of damming up behind there, and that's what we're looking for. As far as the cow goes, you can't really teach a cow to stay out of the water, but what you can do is just put up a fence. You may now have to water this cow, get some sort of trough system out there to feed and water them, but now they're not going to be going down there. They're going to stay away from the edge. They won't trample the sides. They won't poop in the river. The river will stay cleaner. The last thing you can do, we saw all the pollution on the roads from the vehicles. Just get your car tuned up. If you notice that you have an oil stain in your driveway, take it to your local mechanic or tinker around with it, see if you can find out where that leak is coming from. That right there is a major source of pollution, the runoff from our parking lots and roads. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed the weekly reading that we did for the book One Well, and I hope to see you guys throughout the summer on Facebook. Have a great day. Bye.